Hey, what's going on, comic book familia? We are back with comic culture. Joining me once again is Dan Della Torre. This is episode 2, Dan.
Ephraim, yeah, we're getting the hang of this, aren't we? I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things to talk about. It's always fun to put these little shows together. And you want to spring on them what we're going to do next episode?
Yeah, next episode, this is our second episode that I'm recording right now, obviously. I talked to Dan. We're going to go live next time.
Yeah. Let's hear what the chat has to say. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, going live. But this is called Comic Culture, and where we are going to talk about movies, TV shows, trending stories, of course, comic book news. And I got to update this because we decided we're going to add another segment doing with sports. Last time we talked about Roberto Clemente. Dan is a big fan, and so am I. So we are adding one more segment to this away from comic books, and it's going to be about sports, and we'll talk about that later. But you ready to go, Dan?
I'm ready to go, sir.
All right, so first one up is comic book news. We each picked 2 books, either that we're reading or we want to talk about. And I'm up first. This book is from Image Comics. I think it's pronounced as Kaya or Kaya. I'm not sure, obviously, but this is basically the synopsis of this is after the destruction of their village, a young girl with a magic arm and a fighting spirit is tasked with delivering her little brother to a faraway safe haven that he's destined to discover the secret to overthrowing the all-powerful empire that destroyed their home. This is from writer and artist Wes Craig. He also has done Deadly Class, Gravediggers, and Gravediggers Union. I've read all 6 chapters so far. Entertaining, and we talked previously about indie books, how they're just so good. Back in the day, all I ever read was Marvel books, like 99%. And last 5 or so years, I've been really picking up on indie books, and I've really been enjoying this story.
Just looking at the images here and what you're telling me of the synopsis of the storyline, this looks like a made for TV movie or something, or maybe even something on the big screen, depending on who writes it, who plays it. These action type, survival adventures do capture the imagination. Again, but it also depends on the story. But if it's grabbed your imagination, and you and I have a very similar taste in comics, that says a lot. So this might be something to keep an eye on. I've not seen this series. When did this come out? Do you remember? Is this fairly new?
Issue 6 just came out, so this series has been going on for about a half a year now.
Okay, so this is an ongoing series right now.
It's an ongoing series. Yep, and the writer, like I said, Wes Craig. Every time at the end of each book, they have words from the writer. And he's very enthused about this series, and I'm glad I picked it up. It's a very enjoyable book. I actually sent him a message on Instagram if he'd like to come on my channel talking about his book, but he hasn't replied yet, so we'll see what happens.
Have you read from Wes Craig before?
No, never read from him.
Okay, that's the author is new to me. I'm not up on his work, but again, you've got my interest here.
Yeah, great storyline so far. You're up next.
There are 2 that I have, and these are older books. One is older than the other, obviously. One is a copper/modern book. It was the last book I actually read and appreciated just before I stopped collecting in the mid '90s, because the stories because you and I are both Marvel people. They went so far away from what I grew up with. And they were getting way more expensive. But this is the last one I really loved. This is called What If 71? What if the Gamma Bomb spawned 1,000 Hulks? It's a really inexpensive read. I mean, this was $1 book all day. I've got several copies. In fact, I love this story so much that I did just recently pick up a 9.6 white pages CGC of this. But why this is relevant today is because this is the only story that I can recall. Maybe there were others in the modern age that I didn't read, because again, I stopped in the mid '90s. But after the last episode of She-Hulk, basically the She-Hulk or the Hulk serum is out there, and Hulk warns her in episode 1, don't let your blood fall into the wrong hands because of the potential, the mutation potential. So they don't really explain why, but I believe the serum is out. And you think of this sort of like the Steve Rogers Captain America serum, which was created in the 40s. That was also something that was sought after. But with the Hulk serum, it's a bit different. And of course, you're going to have a variety of mutations. Now, there's a number of Hulk stories that are out there. On another show, someone brought up the possibility of Red She-Hulk, and I reminded them of this particular issue here. So this might be a deep, deep sleeper, but you cannot lose with this, because I was so taken by the story. I've never seen the writer or the artist, but again, it was a fabulous story and a bit controversial, actually, because it dovetails with what happened in World War II. But that's the first story you can't go wrong with. What If number 71. Now, to the right is well, I would say a classic, a John Byrne classic. That's Fantastic Four. I believe it's 243. Forgive me, I didn't write the notes here, but you can tell that's Galactus versus everyone. It's a dynamite story. John Byrne with his excellent artwork. Why I bring this up is because Galactus is clearly on his way with the Fantastic Four. This is the story, and a bit of a spoiler if you haven't read it. Basically, Galactus is dying. He's losing his power and shrinking down to size. Richards saves him because that's what Reed Richards does. He convinces the rest of the group to save him, but they have to defeat him first. I know that sounds like an oxymoron. But if the Galactus story ties into something like this, I can see this showing up at the beginning of the Fantastic Four movie, because, again, excuse me, if they're going to go with Galactus right off the bat, I think they are. They're going to have to. Something along these lines would be something that would fit with the MCU. Galactus is not going anywhere. He's going to be a long character. There's going to be lots of interactions with him and the Fantastic Four. This would be a way to tie that in. Now, again, I'm stretching. I'm totally stretching, but I'm going on my knowledge of comics and a very realistic possibility that this could be the future of the Fantastic Four, with Galactus as or recurring character, and maybe not in every single episode, excuse me, or movie, but I think he has to make a mark, and this might be the way they do that.
Great points. I read that What If book when it first came out. I'm going to reread it now. I'm going to look for it and I'm going to read it again. Such great covers. That's the thing about reading so many books that we have throughout the decades. You just forget about other books that came out, decades ago. But yeah, well, I'm definitely going to pick this book up.
And you mentioned rereading. I read over and over and over again, especially stories I love the most, like Defenders. I've read 1 through 11 100 times. I still am entertained and love them, which is why collecting happened in the first place. I didn't want to get rid of my comics because of the story, the artwork, and everything else. But because you and I are roughly the same age, we have a deep background in the story. You forget all these great comics and stories that all interweave with each other in one form or another. But again, this is why we love the hobby so much. But again, these are my two very solid recommendations. Even if nothing happens in the MCU, you can't go wrong by having these in your collection.
Yes. Do you know if John Burns is still doing art? I've never seen him for
I don't know. I don't. This was done in the 80s.
Yeah.
This is definitely I guess this is still Bronze Age, later Bronze Age, bordering Copper Age. And I've talked about this. There needs to be a redefinition of when the Silver Age ended, when the Bronze Age began and ended, and of course when the Copper Age ended, because they're still considering modern books that were made, I think, in the late 90s. Come on, that was 25 years ago. There's got to be a reclassification of what's what.
I did a video one time where I found this article where this person, he said after the modern age, right when the first Iron Man movie came out, that should have been the Iron Age of comics. Because there are always high points in, when they create a new age, basically. Something important happens.
Yes, there has to be a reason why the age changes, which is why I have been adamant that 1970 is not the cutoff point. There needs to be something significant that changed the whole style and approach to Marvel comics. Yeah. The DC definition is totally different. But I've always said this for the longest time, the 20-cent era is when everything changed. The style changed, the paper quality changed, the size of the comic changed, even the printing and the ink and the paper quality and so forth. But also the last 20-cent issues and the first 25-cent issues were the beginnings of the Marvel value stamp. And that dreaded stamp changed, comic collecting, and it was a nightmare for some people that collected, especially Hulk 180, 181. But I say that's the end of the 20-cent era was like in the early to mid 70s. I'd say that was the tail end of the Silver Age for Marvel Comics.
Speaking of Marvel stamps, as a kid, I used to cut them out every now and then,
Oh,
and
you were
put
one of
them in my
those.
wall.
Did you get the book to collect all of the stamps?
I never did.
No.
I just took out the stamps. Was like, oh, these are so cool. And I used to pin them up on my wall as a kid.
Oh, that's great. Because the thing, with all the advertisements in the comics for all the decade, it's a wonder they didn't cut all the little coupons and send out the little whatever it was.
Yeah.
But there was if you didn't know, Stan Lee sent out in conjunction with the stamp a booklet, and you were supposed to collect all 100. If you collected all 100, you sent it to Marvel, and they gave you this big discount or prize or whatever. Stan Lee was always thinking business. How can I sell my comic? How can I keep the reader interested? I think he would regret it if he was still alive today because of all the nightmare scenarios it caused, we collectors. But anyway, that was the genesis behind all that.
So I'm next, and the next book I picked was Hellcat. This is a limited series. Hellcat was like a co-star in Iron Man books for, over like a half a year. They were engaged for a while, and it's the same writer who did Iron Man is doing Hellcat. This one opens up, let me see, Patsy's new status quo after she declined Tony Stark's marriage proposal and returned to the West Coast. And basically but across the pages of Hellcat 1, his respect for the characters and the wild journey she took to become who she is today is overwhelmingly clear. Basically, she gets framed, or she's like a suspect for a murder, and it goes from there. And issue 1 just came out, and I love these covers. The one on the left I believe, is Peach Momoko. The one in the middle is Scotty Young, and the one on the right is Hugh Lee, I believe is the way you pronounce his name. I just think these are cool covers. I got the one in the middle. So.
I love Scotty Young. I don't think I've ever seen, Peach Momoko. She's a beautiful, incredible, very talented artist. But not everything she does turns to gold. I think I speak for a lot of people, and I'm not trying to badmouth her or say that, but Scotty Young's different. I've never come across a Scotty Young cover that I did not like.
Yeah, they're just awesome. I wonder why. I've seen his artwork on other indie books, but I've never seen his artwork for DC. I'm not sure if Marvel, he has just a contract with Marvel, but they let him do indie books, and then they tell him, but you can't do DC. But I've never seen him do a characterization on DC books.
I wasn't aware he was under any contract. I thought
I'm assuming that he must be, or DC just hasn't reached out to him.
Perhaps. Yeah. But the Hellcat character, as a huge Defenders fan, she was a mainstay, as not terribly early on, but sort of mid-run. But I fell in love with the character, and her first appearance in Avengers, what is it? 150, 151 or something.
Yes.
That's been on the list for a while, and now that I've started buying comics again, I hope to get that sometime later this year.
So, like I said, issue 1 just came out, and I forgot to mention this is written by Christopher Cantwell, and I believe the artist is Alex Lynn. So, but it's a good story so far, and I think it's just going to be 5 issues long.
Okay.
Let's see what's next. So these are just stories that I just picked up this week that I found interesting. Nightwing now has real superpowers and a new costume. This is happening in Nightwing 103. He comes across, this is from writer Taylor, artist Travis Moore. Basically, they meet a character called the Grinning Man. The Titans apprehend man, Nightwing 102, after he tries to kidnap a young girl who is the daughter of Roland Desmond. The Grinning Man told the Titans he was working for Neuron, who previously made a deal with Blockbuster to collect Olivia's soul. And then Dick's new transformation will be explored in Nightwing 104. Nightwing and the Titans realize the only way to save Olivia is to go to hell. Seeing how ineffective his punching was when he last confronted Neuron's demons, Nightwing is temporarily powered up by magic in order to make it through the depths of hell alive, literally. Then it's just going to go from there, see how he adapts to the new powers and how long he'll have them.
Now, this is the original Robin. Is this correct? Who became Nightwing?
Robin,
okay. Yeah. I always cringe to throw up the red flag of caution whenever they do a major alteration to a main character. I was not happy at first as a Hulk fan when they changed him to the Gray Hulk, and then the Smart Hulk, the Professor Hulk. I wish they would have left him the way he was. Anytime you start adding, we have a very significant amount of powers to someone who doesn't have any superpowers. You got to approach extremely cautiously. We'll see where this goes. I'm not rooting against this. I'm not rooting against new ideas. But again, I'm just maybe it's the old school collector in me that loves the original characters the way they were, with a few moderate changes along the way, but nothing of this significance.
I agree with you. I mean, Dick Grayson is like a street level hero, which I always enjoy. To me, he's like one of the heart and souls of the DC universe. Just curious to see how his personality is going to change. Is he going to start acting differently, or is he going to be the same Dick Grayson with superpowers? And how long will it last? I don't think it's going to revert. It's just throwing a wrench into his life, basically.
Well, I didn't mind, for example, there was an ongoing thing with I think it was Spider-Man and a few others, the Captain Universe character.
Oh yeah.
So Spider-Man had that for a while. It was fun for a while because Spider-Man handled it the way you would expect Spider-Man to do it, but it was temporary.
Yeah.
And when they went, when they went away, Spider-Man went back to his old, web slinging self. I'm hoping. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say. I would. My thing. If I had to do this, I'd make this a temporary thing with his powers, then send him back to a street level where he shines more than anything else. Because this completely changes the dynamic of that character if they give him, and it also depends on the magnitude of the powers that they give him. The more powerful he is, he's not the same anymore. It's a completely different character with an old style name, Dick Grayson.
Up next, when I read this, I went, I don't know about this. It says X-Men Marvel's new Spider-Man. The X-Men's Nightcrawler is transformed into Marvel Comics' new webhead, an Uncanny Spider-Man, an upcoming Fall of X limited series. I don't know, who thought of this? I'm sure they're going to sell all kinds of variant covers for this. And I really enjoy Kurt Wagner, who is Nightcrawler, his character, his faith, so we'll see how this goes. I just put this up there because to me, I just thought it was a little bit odd that they're doing this.
It's sort of like mixing Coca-Cola and purple grape knee-high soda in one and saying, well, this is a new thing. Give it a try. You're going to love it. Sometimes just leave it alone. I think they're just going overboard with mixing right off the bat. Again, this just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, me neither. I figured it was interesting news, so that's why I chose it. So up next, this news just came out yesterday, and I already heard people complaining about it on Instagram that CGC once again is raising their service and fees update. They have the monopoly on this. Everybody always goes to CGC, so no matter how many people complain, I'm sure they're going to lose some customers. I haven't used CGC in about 3 years myself. I'm not saying that I wouldn't if I ever got a great Silver Age book, but they're raising the prices again, and I could imagine CBCS is probably going to follow in the next couple of months or so.
I don't mind because on the top of my head, because we all know how we'll talk about the economy towards the end of the show. It's bad. We are in bad shape. What was it? The trust in the economy is at its lowest level ever since recording. So, and inflation's going to go up. So on that side, I have no problem with prices going up across the board. What I do have a problem with is CGC, and I mentioned this when I was on Ian's show with my own segment, the Comic Book Corner segment, that CGC took $500 million from Blackstone, the investment company. Oh, yeah. Apparently, Blackstone has made a number of investments. Some are falling flat, and they are hurting for money. And that means they may be, I have not read the contract, and there had to be a contract signed between CGC and Blackstone regarding what they expect in return. But even if they paid them back $500 million, think about how many comics they have to grade and slab and send back. So they are hustling. They have to. And I can't imagine the amount of pressure that they're on. My guess off the top of my head, and I'm not a financial wizard by any stretch, but if CGC received $500 million, they would probably want at least $2, maybe even $3 billion if, let's say, they signed a 10-year contract. So Blackstone is going to want a significant return. And again, that's a tremendous amount of product that CGC has to put out. And obviously, if you're going to start pushing that much product out, you're going to increase your level of mistakes. You can't. There's no way to govern the problems that were popping up here. I watch a lot of other YouTube shows. There's a whole variety of problems that are popping up. You have to chalk it up to the business model that CGC has backed themselves into. Sure, I guess I would be tempted by making a deal with the devil if I was given $500 million, because again the money is so tempting. But then again, do you want to destroy? They had a solid reputation. They have owned this comic market. That is now in jeopardy. And little things like little increases, little mistakes, little things keep adding up, and it will erode the trust we have in CGC. They're not to the point of maybe PGX. I'm stunned that PGX is still in business.
Yeah.
But CGC has opened the door to not just CBCS, but a company that I'm sending to. In fact, I'm sending my comics tomorrow. EGS.
Yes.
Tony Trombata. He's a good guy, solid in the community. I'm sending my Avengers 1, 2, and 3. Yes, from the 1960s 60s comics. I'm sending Fantastic Four 52, Silver Surfer 4, and Marvel Spotlight 5, all to EGS. Currently, they're the only grading company I trust. And I have also said that because I've lost trust and faith in CGC, I'm not buying any slabs that were made from 2022 on, because I don't trust what's in that slab.
Now, the books that you're sending to
EGS. EGS.
Do you ever plan to sell this your own?
No, I this is all from my personal collection. I don't sell anything. I don't have the business sense, as say our friend Hudat, who's got great business sense. But that's the thing. The sad thing is, if you are in the market and you're buying and selling and flipping these things, you still have to go with CGC and to a lesser degree, CBCS. But then again, that may change. You know, I mean, you and I are old enough to remember when there was a little toy company called Atari, and they were making video games, and they were unbeatable for the longest time. And some even smaller company called Nintendo pops up, and look what happened to that. We don't even hear Atari games or consoles. It's all Nintendo, and of course all the other platforms showed up afterwards. So CGC is on top for now. Let's talk in 10 years and see where they. I think there'll be a significant change from now till 5 or 10 years down the road regarding who's on top with grading.
All right, let's get on to the next subject. Now showing. Now showing is basically where we talk about TV shows and movies. So I read this a couple of days ago. Logan is going to take place years after Deadpool 3. Deadpool 3 Wolverines will be a divergence from the X-Men movies. Because of this device they have in the Marvel world of moving around timelines, now we can go back because it's science. So I don't have to screw with the Logan timeline, which was important to me, and I think to the fans too. Sounds like potential time travel is in the works. And what about a device? For that answer and for answers to questions about the multiverse, the existence of mutants in 616, and the million other queries we have, we'll just have to wait. I think it's good that they're doing this because, it says Logan takes place years after 3. So his continuity stays in status quo, so to speak. But I'm just wondering if this is Hugh Jackman's last go round as Wolverine, or, are they going to put him in a couple more films and then say goodbye to him?
With the element of CGI, he's still not an old man. I think he's roughly our age, but he's in great shape, obviously. and with makeup and all the rest of it, I think, and of course, money, if the money is right, he'll keep playing this character. And we want him to play this character. I don't want this character to go away. It's too soon. Because how would you recast Logan unless you start from as a much younger Logan, excuse me, as DC is trying with Superman? I think we've got another few movies at least, or shows with him in it. But the worry though that is timeline. When they introduce the multiverse, it is so easy to get lost regarding what is what did happen, what didn't happen, what movie changes another timeline, and so on and so forth. Um, Obviously, that the writers have to be extremely cautious regarding what they present as a certain timeline, but at least it gives us a point of reference.
Yeah.
If you're keeping score, but it's something you got to be very, very careful with regarding the time mechanics and that sort of thing. But hey, it's a no-brainer. We're going to see this movie. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a great, great movie with those two actors in it.
At least he's got to appear in at least one X-Men movie and go
Oh
from
yeah,
there
yeah,
after that.
yeah.
All right. You're up next.
Well, just before getting on the show, I was doing some last minute show prep, and there was sadly yet another accusation for Jonathan Major, who had an accusation several weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, of abuse from his girlfriend, or some assault rather. And the thing is, the rumors have been flying from Marvel, the MCU, that they may be looking for a replacement. Now, the rumors are just that, and if I'm at the MCU, I don't have a problem with that to make a precautionary, first look. I don't think they're ready to fire him as yet. What bothers me, it's bothered me for the longest time, not just with this, but with so many other accusations that fly in the public court of public opinion. The public judges so too quickly
Yes.
with relationships, and now he's a big star. He's making all sorts of money. Maybe people in his personal life he is finding. And again, I'm not defending the man. I'm just throwing out idle speculation. All sorts of scenarios can happen. It's no different than the character he's playing with all the timelines and all the different scenarios. It could be that his friends or female acquaintances now want to take advantage. That is a possibility. Or that the possibility that the pressure's getting to him and he's now volatile and not knowing how to handle things properly. We don't. But bottom line, we don't know. The thing is that everyone should cool off, let the legal process play out. I know it's not a perfect legal process, but it's the only one we have. And
Yeah.
so I think the MCU is doing the same thing. It's a wait and see approach. But here's from their perspective, there's a ton of money tied up into this one particular actor because of the future of the Kang Dynasty and the Avengers Kang Dynasty movie that's about to come out in a number of years. So we'll just wait and see. Jonathan Major, at this point, to my knowledge, has never had this sort of problem happen before. That's in his favor. So he doesn't have a history of volatility. This is a first. And every pun intended, time is on his side because these sort of stories flare up. But if nothing happens 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, there's no other accusations, then people sort of forgive, and just move on, and he can continue on with his life. But again, let's not jump to conclusions. Let's just let it play out here, see what happens, and we won't know until the end. There's no way to predict or to find out exactly what's happened until the court case reveals itself.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. This is the court of public opinion. He hasn't been tried of anything, but we all remember what happened with James Gunn and Marvel when they got rid of him because of some tweets back in the day, and then they brought him back in. So this is just like I said. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens to him. As far as personal life.
Well, it does. Speaking of James Gunn, because the comparison I wanted to bring up was Ezra Miller. Now, it depends on the contracts that are signed, and they're in every contract you sign, there are expectations. And if Marvel, for example, has a no tolerance policy, if you can't get into any trouble, if you're in trouble and your contract says you're not supposed to, they have the right to fire you because you signed that contract. And again, this is speculation. I don't know what was signed. I don't know what's in Jonathan Major's contract with Marvel, and I also don't know what's in DC's contract with Ezra Miller. We all know Ezra Miller has had a number of run-ins with the law, and he's had a number of mental issues that he's sort of made public. The biggest problem, as we talked about on the last episode, was that there are some very serious, even far more serious accusations about Ezra Miller with child sex issues and so forth. Now, again, I'm not judging Ezra Miller. I root for everyone. If this young man has some issues, I'm rooting for him to straighten his life out. And I'm hoping, of course, these accusations are not true. But again, I can't prove that. That has to play itself out. Now, there's two schools of thought with the DCU. Either they're not doing their homework and digging deep into this story, or they know something we don't, and that there's nothing to really worry about with this actor's current issues and current past, so they're moving the ball forward, or they're rolling the dice because the movie's already made. It looks fantastic. It just does from a comic standpoint, and they're just hoping that there isn't any further trouble and these things will all get washed aside. But the great risk that they're running is, again, we talked about last episode, if they're wrong and these things are true, that does not look good from the suits at DC Universe, including James Gunn and David Zaslav, who's the CEO. So again, it's a wait and see thing. But it's interesting to see how DC handles a situation far differently than the MCU does.
Yeah. And we'll see what happens if they don't like him. All they have to do at the end of the movie is switch him out with another Flash. That will solve their problem.
Well, the other thing too, he's already recognized Flash. I actually like the character as the Flash. I've accepted him as the Flash. Yeah. But again, because of his troubles of late, I bet you anything he's far cheaper than the Gal Gadot or Henry Cavill and who else? The name escapes me. But so they're saving money. And if they make a lot of money, and I think they will, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, the Black Adam character. If they go ahead with this and make a lot of money, they're desperate for money. DC is in huge financial constraints right now, so they're trying to do everything on the cheap. But again, even with Ezra Miller, I'm not making any judgments with him because I want to see what the facts are. We won't see it until his court cases are revealed, and then we'll make our judgments from there.
Interesting. I read an article that the TV Flash, Grant Gustin, they asked him if he was in this movie, and he said no. I mean, he may be, not saying the truth, because he doesn't want any spoilers to come out, but but he's flat out said, no, I'm not in the movie at all.
Well, also, why am I drawing a blank on the Michael Keaton is in this movie as well, and he's got a solid reputation. And if the accusations are true, there's sort of guilt by association. You're kind of soiled, if you will, because Keaton could have said, "Look, I don't want to be associated with this movie. I don't want it shown, because if this is true, he's worked very hard in his whole life and in his whole career to keep a very stellar reputation. So he's also rolling the dice too. So there is that. But again, it's a complicated, potentially ugly and messy situation. I'm hoping it isn't messy. I'm hoping these things aren't true, or they clean up, whatever they've done, if they've done anything at all. And I don't know. This is all speculation on this part. I do have a problem with people judging too quickly. Yes. I think that's a horrible thing to do. Let these things play out, and then we'll go from there.
The one smart thing they did about this movie so far is having Michael Keaton in it. That's going to bring in a lot more money for them. That's for sure.
It's going to be. It looks like a dynamite movie.
Yep. Okay, so this is other news. I'm a Star Trek fan. Yes, that's the first series that I really got into when I was a kid. Obviously, it came out before Star Wars. It says the actress Michelle Yeoh. She's going to return to the Star Trek family. A special movie event coming to Paramount Plus. This is the good news and bad news out of the Star Trek universe. The long-awaited spin-off series starring Michelle Yeoh as Captain Philippa Georgiou is not happening. They're going to be making a standalone Star Trek movie titled Star Trek Section 31. Section 31 in the Star Trek Discovery is like a super secret kind of espionage part of Starfleet, but they do the jobs that nobody else wants to do, basically. And she's going to be starring in a movie on that instead of a regular TV series.
This was Section 31 was profiled very heavily in the Deep Space Nine series when they were fighting the Dominion and the founders, and then agents of Section 31 showed up. It was a super secretive organization. Many Starfleet officers didn't even know about it. That's how secret they are. But it's interesting how it kind of dovetails with politics today. There's all these secret organizations in our government that no one knows anything about. But this is also and I did an entire segment on it because you and I are both Star Trek people. This is a deep, rich franchise. Star Trek is huge. It dominated, the science fiction world long before Star Wars did,
Yes.
and it dovetailed perfectly with Marvel comics at the time. In fact, they very much overshadowed Marvel back in the 60s and 70s. Then, of course, Star Wars showed up, and that overshadowed everybody. But there is so much history, so many storylines, and keep this in mind: the next generation cast, all of them, I think with I think all of them are still alive and well. I don't think there's
Yes.
anyone that's passed. That next generation cast was handpicked by Gene Roddenberry himself.
Yes.
They're still alive. They can still produce one good last movie. They've said so more than once. Is there money in that? Is there an organization that wants to, bring those people on the big screen for one last time? I mean, even if they don't, I'm hoping that Star Trek doesn't go away because again, I love. Look, we're outnumbered badly. Star Trek people, Star Wars
Yeah.
people outnumbers like 10-1.
Yeah.
But I love Star Trek. I hope it doesn't go away. There's so much more to it. It just takes the right mindset and the people that understood Gene Roddenberry, what he was trying to do to bring this back into either comic form, big screen, television, whatever. I just hope it doesn't go away.
Well, in the last season of Picard, #3, which just finished, the original crew has come back. So we'll see. If that's their last, go round. But like I said, I'm glad that they're making a movie. But I was really hoping it would have been a series about Section 31. But maybe they'll do more than one movie if it's a success.
Yeah, again, there's so many. It's like our comics. There's so
Yeah.
many comics and so many stories to draw from. This is no different. There's such a rich history that just hasn't been tapped yet.
Yep. Okay, you're up.
Another situation where there's a court of public opinion is the Marvels, and I listen to a lot of YouTube shows, YouTube comic shows, and there has been some criticism of this movie, and the accusation is, and I haven't read what was posted on IG or other platforms, that many are dismissing this because it's an all-female cast. I'm not one of those people. I look at quality more than anything else. And in Marvel, Star Trek, whatever else, there was always men and women in these particular roles and stories. There's 3 actresses here on this trailer that dropped just recently. We've got, of course, Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, and we've got forgive me if I'm butchering these names, Iman Vellani, who is Kamala Khan, and Teyona Paris, who is Monica Rambeau. I have no problem with those actors, but I've been very open about my displeasure and dislike for Brie Larson. The reason why was when I first saw the Captain Marvel movie, it was just before Avengers Endgame. She struck me right just from the screen, just by my interpretation of her, a little too self-important, a little too egotistical, and you can sort of tell, when you don't like an actor or actress based on their performance. This also projected itself in Avengers Endgame because she didn't seem to fit in. And as an aficionado from Bronze Age, I sort of knew what to look for, and she wasn't it. Now, it is a difficult role to play, the Captain Marvel role. It was originally a male role, which I think they should have had both, a male and female Captain Marvel, but maybe they can later on. But Brie Larson isn't it. And this was also confirmed by reports that I'd heard that when she was doing the Avengers Endgame movie, the other actors and actresses who had far more history than she did, she was the one who was more vocal and kind of mouthing off regarding this and that, and she wanted to do this and do that. And it was more annoying for these people, and they basically tolerated her. And again, a lot of these actors and actresses in Hollywood have a thick skin. But if they're saying how, frustrating it was to work with her, that just confirms to me the woman thinks she's more than she really is. And it bugs me because I love Marvel so much. This is sort of a down. I'm not looking forward to. I will watch this movie. I'm not looking forward to her performance. Now, let's say she turns it around. Let's say she it starts acting in a way that is, to me, more pleasing, more incorporating. Sure, I'll be happy to embrace her. At this point, I just have this bad taste in what I've seen so far from this particular actress, and that's as far as it goes. But as far as other people, because again, this is a mostly male-dominated community with the comic book community, there's that natural inclination, mostly from younger men, excuse me, they don't really care for, you know, an all-female cast. And I would suspect that some of these same people had the same opinion of the She-Hulk series, which was basically a chick flick. You know, the
Yeah.
whole series was female oriented, and that was Tatiana Maslany, and I loved her. You know, some of the episodes in that She-Hulk series were a bit tough to listen to, because I have this thing about chick flicks. In my dating years, I had to suffer through all sorts of them, and now I'm married. I don't have to worry about them anymore. But she won me over, Tatiana Maslany, and that whole series was wonderful. Look, I'm going to watch this, and again, I'm hoping for the best here. And I'll do my best to tolerate Brie Larson. I'm hoping she does a better performance, and I'm not going to wish her ill will. This is not personal. Some have said that my disdain for her is personal. It's not personal at all. I don't know the woman. I just know what I see on the screen, and it's no different than reading a comic and there's a story I didn't like. I think the writer did a poor job, or the artist did a poor job. So it's personal opinion, but I wanted to get that off my chest because it was bugging me that I've been sort of thrown into the mix with all these other people just because they're all female actresses, that I want to dismiss the movie, you know, at hand.
Yeah, there's some people that just, you know, rub you the wrong way. I did not like She-Hulk, the TV show, at all. I watched it because, you know, I started it, but I was like, oh my God, this is bad. But I don't know. But that's who the character is. I don't know. In the comic book, she is like that a lot, which I enjoy reading. I like her character in the comic books. It just, to me, it just didn't translate the right way. You know, like, I have nothing against the actress. I mean, there's some scenes that are really good, but other scenes, you know. But did you see the trailer for the Marvels, the most recent one? Did you enjoy it?
I haven't seen it yet, but again, there's no way I'm going to miss this movie. If it interweaves with the rest of the MCU, you have to see it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a loyalist. I see pretty much everything.
Yeah.
You know, whether I like it or I don't like it. But also, you and I are, again, the same age. We remember we didn't buy every comic. One, we couldn't afford them as kids, but two, there's some stories that just some series they didn't grab me. And I had no problem not buying them, you know. So it's no different here. But we'll see where this all goes.
Yeah, hopefully it's a good movie. You know, Marvel needs a hit. So, all right. Oh, this is another picture of the three women.
Yeah, that's just a closer profile of them. Yeah. And I picked that particular picture. This is bias on my part. There's sort of an arrogant sneer on Brie Larson's face, which is why I chose it. And then the other actress, again, forgive the pronunciation, Teyonah Parris as Monica Rambeau. That was from the Wanda series. She's fabulous job with that. And the other one, Iman Vellani, reminded me of my oldest daughter, and that because it was a personal connection to me. You know, a teen who's sort of nerdy and uncertain of herself suddenly gains powers, and that was a cute series, and it gave a little profile into. I think they're Muslim, and so there was they had their faith and their family, and you know, I just love the way that all came together. So again, I'll watch this, and I'll do my best with Brie Larson.
We've mentioned in the past how some of these Marvel characters are now over 60 years old. But it's good to see them coming up with new characters like Kamala Khan, who has only been around probably less than 10 years for sure, probably about 5 years now. You know, I like that they incorporating newer characters into their movies.
Well, if they played this right, that yes, it takes much longer to produce a movie, but the spirit and what won over the fans, what won over you and I as children was the storyline from the Silver, Bronze, and Copper Age, because they were interesting. Which is why we were still after chasing them even to this day. You know, so the MCU, the more they stay true to the original storyline, the more they're going to have success.
And you're up next again, Scarlet Witch.
Elizabeth that was just another one I threw in because she was another. Elizabeth Olsen is another actress that won me over. She's absolutely adorable. It was a little different than, and you know what? This is a question for you. I don't remember the Scarlet Witch character ever being that powerful. Do you? Back in the Silver and Bronze Age?
Not in the Silver and Bronze Age, but more like in the 80s and 90s. Remember when she said no more mutants, when she destroyed the whole mutant population? And Agatha Harkness, who was in the Scarlet Witch and Vision movie, took her under her wing to try to help her with her powers. But she's a very powerful person. She could have beat Thanos in the movie, but Thanos sucker punched her basically. in the
Well,
movie.
because my memory of her, and I guess I should reread some of those, was she was more of a, well, I hate to say this, a secondary or supporting character regarding her powers.
Yes,
And
because they were
then
uncontrollable.
yeah, and then she got ultra powerful, which I'd stopped reading by that point. But it's very similar to Jean Grey from the X-Men, who was again who she could levitate rocks and whatever, and she didn't have that much power. Then she became Phoenix, ultra powerful.
Yeah.
So there was that transition. Was there that same transition that I missed in the comics with Wanda?
I think with Wanda, she went a little bit crazy, losing her children, divorcing Vision. And I think her craziness unleashed more of her power that she didn't know she had. So I think,
Ah, okay.
yeah,
Now I get it. Now
yeah,
that makes sense. But
yeah.
again, this actress totally won me over.
Oh, yeah.
Just because she has great ability, you believe that was Wanda, and
Yep.
so it had nothing to do with her gender or anything else. I'm looking for the performance. Is the
Yeah.
performance up to standards? And hers was far, way exceeded my expectations. So it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with gender whatsoever. I'm looking for quality.
I think she's going to come back in the Marvel Universe movies. I'm not 100% sure, but they haven't ended her storyline, I don't believe.
No, no. In fact, one of the supporting characters in WandaVision, I saw her at one of the cons here in San Jose, California. She couldn't say, but she is coming back.
Okay.
I won't say who it is because, again, I made a promise I wouldn't say anything. But yeah.
Okay. So this movie, Galaxy Quest, came out in 1999. It's like a funny version of Star Trek. And now it looks, like I said, 1999, a long time ago, but looks like it's in the works for a regular series on Paramount Plus. It's going to be produced by Mark Johnson, and he produced the original movie. He's going to executive produce this series. And hopefully, if it's anything like the movie, this was a great movie. Thinking about this, I go, I'm going to watch it again. It started Sigourney Weaver and Tim Allen. And I forgot the character's name, Professor Snape in Harry Potter, Alan Rickman.
Oh
He's
yeah. Right.
the character on the left-hand side. And basically, they're just actors after the series ended and they're going to Comic-Cons just trying to make a living. But aliens from outer space got a hold of their TV show, and they thought they were really, they were really space people that would help out other, aliens. So they kidnap them and they take them into outer space to fight against an enemy. And it progresses from there. At the beginning, they're all like, what the heck? We don't know anything about this. But as the movie progressed, they gained their courage and they helped them, these aliens, defeat the bad guy in the movie. It's a really good movie. I'm not giving it enough justice.
Well, you and I talked backstage about this movie. I've heard of it, and I've never sat down to watch it. And now, because you and I are both Star Trek people, I have to watch this show for two reasons. One, it looks hysterical, and it would, we'd laugh at the parody of Star Trek. But if they're doing an ongoing series, where's the series going to be at?
It's going to be on Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus. Yeah. If we're going to watch that, we have to watch the movie first. So no, this is definitely on the list. I just looking at the picture is hilarious. Looks like, is that Geordi, and who that is? There's a Vulcan female in the background.
Yes.
Okay. Again, as Star Trek people, this is a must see.
Yeah, this was a great movie, and I'm actually just thinking about this movie. I'm going to watch it again. It's just very entertaining. Okay, and this is bad news for Disney. Both Lightyear and Strange World marked major losses for Disney in 2022. Per deadline, Strange World returned total revenues of only $165 million against its $180 million production costs, with advertising and other expenses pushing the total to $317 million. This left Strange World holding a net loss of over $152 million. Lightyear only brought in $267 million against its $373 million expense total, bringing the net loss of the studio to $106 million. I think they messed up on Lightyear because they didn't have the voice of Tim Allen. They had Chris Evans, so that turned a lot of people off. And Strange Worlds, I didn't even heard about this movie until right now. So,
well, there's several things that may point to all of their losses here. Just like we had the comic boom in 2020-21, then it took a nosedive. I think that's going across the board with anything that's being produced from Hollywood. That these were made, you don't start a show today and it's done tomorrow, and it takes months or years before it's done with animation and all the rest of it. So they weren't worried about the cost at the time, thinking they'll just make it up. Now they're finding out the hard way that the economy's not that good. People aren't watching or buying like they used to. They're certainly not going to theaters. Theater attendance is way down because, again, there's still the fear of the pandemic, and they just want to watch from the comfort of their home. In fact, my local theater here in Sonoma closed down, so I don't have a theater. I have to go either to Napa or Petaluma, which are my neighboring cities. And do I now have to think twice? Do I want to go there? It's only a half-hour drive, but the movie has to grab me. Neither one of these would have brought my attention to say, "Hey, I'm going to take a drive 30 minutes that way just to go and see the movie." So there's a new reality of entertainment. I mean, they can afford it right now, but still, I think they're sort of reevaluating what they're going to do. But people are going to need entertainment, but it's going to have to really, really grab them. I don't think we need to make a collection box for the MCU. I think they've made quite a bit of money over the years, and they're still long term. DVD sales and that sort of thing, or I'm aging myself. Was it Blu-ray, whatever else is out there? So it's a temporary setback from them, but I wouldn't worry too much about it, from their standpoint.
I must say, I did watch Lightyear, and I thought it was entertaining. I did enjoy that movie, but it kept on throwing me off every time I heard his voice because it was Chris Evans talking.
Well, the one movie, my daughter and I were talking about this today, Super Mario. We're gamers. I mean, I'm a gamer and have been for the longest time. That looks hilarious, and it's getting really, really good reviews. That I would drive to, the neighboring city to go watch a movie like that.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out for sure also. Okay, so last month we talked about a documentary on Roberto Clemente, and then behind the scenes I asked Dan, do you want to do a segment just talking about sports? It could be anything, baseball, football, basketball, it could be hockey, the Olympics, whatever comes up, whichever is a hot topic at this moment. And he said yes, so we're big baseball fans. So this one is basically going to focus on baseball and the new rules. 2023 Major League Baseball rule changes. There's a pitch clock now, the end of the shift, and also they have larger bases. So for the pickoff attempts will be limited. Pitchers will only be allowed 2 disengagements from the rubber. The number of times they can step off to throw to a base or to get a new sign. That to me is confusing. If it's only 2 disengagements, what happens after the third one? Does the runner take a big lead? And there's no throwing to first base? That one has confused me a little bit. I'm not exactly sure. And then teams no longer allowed to shift their infielders when certain players, if it's a left-hander or a right-hander, and they only hit towards one direction, the infielders were allowed to shift, but they can't do that anymore. And the last one is the size of the bases will be increased to 18 inches instead of 15-inch squares. So I don't know about these new rules, Dan.
Well, let's, for the audience's sake, why we're profiling on sports is because, look, the world is so bad that you have to find things that make you happy. Comic books make us happy. Sports make us happy. And so you need that. It's very healthy to have these things as an escape for the extreme difficulties of the world. And it's getting worse with the economy and, possible wars breaking out across the world. But to answer your question with baseball, I'm a purist.
Yep.
I say they never should have started tinkering with the rules, which they have been for the longest time. I blame in large measure when the owners of baseball literally booted out the commissioner. There is no commissioner's office. The commissioner's office is a joke. The last commissioner, the real commissioner, was Fay Vincent, and he wasn't the best commissioner, but that was back in the early 90s, I think it is. And so what happened was he did some things that the owners weren't happy with. They basically booted him out. This is a rare time I would have said that government should have stepped in and not allowed the owners to take over baseball, because it became a game for the owners by the owners. And this is all about money. How much money can we get from our revenues? How much can we get if we streamline it, getting more people in the stands, more people to watch, and so on and so forth. This is a horrible idea, and it's going to get worse. I'm just barely holding on to baseball. My daughter and I went to go see a game today at the Oakland Coliseum. My Cubs finished a sweep of the A's. It still looks like baseball on the surface of it, but all these changes are completely unnecessary. With, for example, the pickoff move, the way it works is the pitcher can throw to or any base only twice. The third time he can throw, but he must get the runner out. If he doesn't, that runner advances to another base. That's completely unnecessary. Last year they did the in extra innings. If game goes to extra innings, there's a runner that goes to second base, like we did in Little League.
Yeah,
guys, this is not Little League. These are professional athletes. Again, I'm going to sound like an old purist, but these are men. Leave them alone. Let them work for their trade. Yes, they're going to get injured. Yes, there's going to be problems along the way. But softening the game, for example, a doubleheader used to be 2 9-inning games. Now it's 2 7-inning games. And if the game goes to, again, extra innings, they're making it easier to end the game more quickly. This is going to backfire in the end. At some point, the owners, and it's already backfiring with. And if money is the main motivation, and it is, it's already backfired in one way. Beer sales are down across the board.
Yes,
a story came out the other day that beer sales are way down. Well, that's one of their big ticket items.
Yeah.
So they're extending the cutoff day. It used to be 7th inning was the last call. Now they're going to move that to the 8th inning. And just to get more beer sales, but then they're going to increase DUIs. As the alcohol is still in your system as you leave the stadium. This is a stupid idea. And I saw something for the first time I hadn't seen in decades here in the Bay Area. They're selling beer in the stands. They stopped doing that a long time ago. There's a long reason as to why. But the more they monkey with this game, the more you're going to it won't be baseball anymore. It'll be wiffle ball. You might as well have a soft bat and a soft ball, and it won't be the same anymore. So again, as a fan, I'm still hanging on, but just barely. But I again, because we need this entertainment. I hope they don't destroy this forever, and they're kind of going down that road.
What's going to happen is people that are older like us who are purists. I didn't even like the designated hitter rule when it came to the National League a couple years ago. I said, let the pitcher hit, but they are focusing more on the future. And, they have a clock now, and, the pitcher has to pitch at a certain time, and the batter has to be on the, set to hit. If not, they get a ball or they get a strike thrown against them. So they're trying to get, everybody loves football because it's so exciting, all the action. They're trying to do that to baseball, make the bases bigger. So, there will be more men on base. And there is a new rule that's being tried out that I just read today. This is in the Atlantic Coast League. Major League Baseball will test out a designated pinch runner in the Atlantic League this season. One player not in the starting lineup will be listed as a designated pinch runner and can be substituted into the game as a base runner at any point without a true substitution being made. I'm just like, come on.
Well,
run now.
As of today in Sacramento, at the Rivercats, the AAA team, they're testing out for the first time an automated strike zone. The problem was whoever programmed that made the zone much smaller than the actual strike zone. So pitchers can't hit that much smaller zone, which is really stupid. That's the one thing I might have agreed to having incorporated in and removing that responsibility from the home plate umpire. The reason why is not that I want to get rid of the home plate umpire, but the pitchers are much faster these days. There weren't many pitchers that would hit upwards of upper 90s or 100 miles an hour. Now they're kind of commonplace.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for even a professional umpire to gauge where that ball actually is. But also what bothers me the most is over the last 10 years, the umpires are so wrong about the strike zone. And if they're wrong, they're completely affecting the game. And if you have the reason why you have a human person behind the plate, because we didn't have the technology in the last century. Now we do. So you still need an umpire for this and that. But for balls and strikes, if you clearly have the technology.
Yes.
I would set that up because if a pitcher makes a strike, it should be a strike. Nothing
I
wrong with
agree.
that. Because if they've gone to the trouble of doing the instant replay, the reason why they do the instant replay is to get the call right. So if they're going to go down that road, you might as well do the automatic strike zone, leave the umpire there for other decisions, which a computer really can't do. But so there are things I wouldn't mind changing, but they're going in such a skewed way, and again, they're removing what made baseball baseball, and it very much dovetails with why we love comics is because the original storyline from the Silver Age and Bronze Age they grabbed us. That's why you read them all the time. With baseball and any sport, we are gravitated towards that because of what they do. We see the performances on the field. We understand the rules of the game. Everyone understands that. And but the more you start changing it, the more it's not the same anymore. Just like when I left comics in the modern age, it wasn't the same anymore. They kept changing things so much that it was so far away from the original format. I thought, this isn't me anymore. So again, baseball is my last out regarding no pun intended, my last escape, I should say. I gave up on basketball and football a long time ago, and the reason why, and I'm not going to get into the political side of it, but politics got infested themselves very much in basketball and football. Now, politics is so horrible, most people turn away from it. That's why I turned heavily into comics, because even I, a political newshead, and I know way more about politics than comics, even I couldn't take it anymore. And so that's what ruined it for me. I hope that isn't going to come into Major League Baseball. It could. That would be the last straw for me if it does. But the original question was the changes that have happened here. I guess we'll get used to them, and we'll just see what happens. Again, I'm in 2 fantasy baseball leagues, so I'll probably stick it out for a while. But even I have my threshold.
Dan, your size says it all. But I do agree that they should automate the strike zone. Get it right. They're going to tinker with it in the minor leagues. Eventually, it's going to come to the major leagues. If it's a strike, it's a strike. If it's a ball, it's a ball. They'll still have umpires to give out the calls, but I think they should, do that for strike zone.
Yeah, no question about it.
Yep. All right. This is talking about the pitch clock. Forgot to show it to you. It says the hitter, however, must be ready to be in the batter's box. He must be facing and looking at the pitcher with 8 seconds left on the clock. If not, he gets charged with a strike. The consequences were on full display earlier in spring training. Well, I agree with the pitch clock. I think pitchers and hitters, they take too long.
Well, my sister-in-law actually does stats for MLB. She goes to the games, and she'll there's a crew. She's an official statistician, very cool. And she was noticing that these new rules, even the umpires are screwing up on. They're not, because it's new to them. In fact, the A's manager came out and was complaining because they had forgotten one of these rules that you just profiled regarding the batter getting back in the batter's box. He didn't do it, and the A's manager was totally within his rights to say that's wrong. Well, the umpire didn't want to take no for an answer, or didn't want to admit he was wrong. He tossed him out of the game. So there's obviously a lot of friction with these new rules, and they haven't worked out the bugs yet. And anyway,
I was listening to a radio talk show, and they had the baseball does have a commissioner, though, right? Or they don't?
It's the owners rotate who's the commissioner.
Okay.
It's not an actual arbiter, or the commissioner's office used to be an objective body outside of baseball to monitor this and that, and you need that. Now the owners rule everything, and that's the genesis behind all these things here. It's all about money, and that they're making mistake after mistake after mistake. Anyway, what will happen is, in the end, here's the worst case scenario: people give up on baseball, and it just goes bankrupt. And we won't see any professional sports anymore from the major leagues.
Now, the person they were talking to on the radio, he worked in baseball, and he did say this is a work in progress. They may tinker with the rules. They're just seeing how it goes, and we shall see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Now, our last segment is comic book market. We're going to go through silver, bronze, copper, and modern age. I just took a snapshot of 5 books for each age that is currently selling on eBay. First up is Silver Age. Let me make this a little bit bigger here, so everybody can see a little bit better. Can you still see that?
I can see it. Yeah, I think the audience could too.
Yeah. So first up, and these are just 5 books that I just took a quick snapshot on that are currently on sale. First one is Silver Surfer #3, CGC 6.0. Number of bids is 37, and right now the current price is $318. That's pretty cheap so far for this book.
I think that's going to go for what's the grade on that again? 6.0.
Yeah.
6.0. That's going to go for a lot more.
Yeah,
that's going to go for a lot more. That's probably a $500 to $600 book. It's still a hot book, and people are that's on people's list.
Next up is Silver Surfer #1, CGC 7.0. Came out in 1968. Origin of the Silver Surfer. Number of bids so far is 35. Current price is $1,184. That's getting up there in price.
It's a high grade, and also if it's white pages, that's obviously very desirable. But the key books are still they're creeping up, and people still want them, even though prices collectively are coming down.
Yeah. Next up, we have X-Men #12. I believe it's a CGC 3.5. First appearance of Juggernaut, his origin. Number of bids 34, and the current price so far is $385. It's a lower grade, so that's why you're seeing that price. But I think this book is going to get it towards the end when there's minutes left. I can see this book going over $500 easily.
Possibly. It depends on how it presents, because the image is too small. Also, white pages is always a mainstay. But yeah, I would say $450 max for this, because it is a 3.0.
You know what I'm going to do for this specific book? I'm going to keep my eye on it, and next time we go around, we'll see how much it's sold for. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Next up is Thor 134. The last two is Thor 134 and Thor 165. The Thor 134 is a CGC of 8.5. First appearance of High Evolutionary. And the last one is Thor 165. This is a CGC 9.0. White pages, first full Warlock, Silver Age key. And the first one is right now, the current price is $162.50. And the 9.0 is at $668.93.
The first High Evolutionary, I think, is way underpriced at this point, because that's a pretty high grade, 8.5, and that's a book I've had on my list for a long time. I'd take that in a second if that's all there was to pay for it, but I think it's going to go up. Yeah. And then the Adam Warlock, that's just both those books. In fact, I take it back. All of these books you want in your collection. You just do. There's not one book I wouldn't have in my collection. But this is still way much lower than it was 2 years ago. I mean, you would double the prices on all of these at this point. In the middle of their bids. Maybe not the Silver Surfer one, although it's a 7.0. That's that might be $1,500 2 years ago, but it is down. But the point is, people are still buying. And they're buying at a lesser rate, but they are buying, and that's a very healthy sign.
One of the reasons is when I see books like this, I'm tempted to bid, but when it comes to eBay, just the price and then the taxes added on to it to me, it's a shock. And that's one of the main reasons that I don't bid for books on eBay anymore. I just don't want to pay taxes for them. I think it's outrageous. Well, you pay taxes for everything else in life, but for some reason, to me, comic books and taxes, they don't mesh. So. Well,
I look at this though differently. I look at this no differently than buying a stock from one of the stockbrokers, because you Charles Schwab, for example, or there's another E-Trade. You pay a fee. You pay a fee because there are people that make the transaction for you, and also they win no matter whether you buy a stock or you sell a stock. That's that's how they make their money. But you can guarantee it's going to be in your portfolio. With eBay, say what you will about their prices, but I've had great success by purchasing eBay stuff, because with my entire most of the stuff I bought from eBay, 98% has been flawless. I've got what I wanted. I got what for the price. It was in my hands. It was exactly what it was. I've had a few problems along the way, not many. But eBay does protect the buyer more than they do the seller, and I've heard this from more than one source. In fact, A1 Comics from Sacramento, very reliable source. shout out to A1 Comics. I knew the original owner. He said he still sells on eBay, but he says the thing is, if there's an issue, usually the buyer has the upper hand if they make a complaint, and
Oh,
that's a difficult thing for him as a seller. But I don't mind, the eBay prices, because again, you're buying for the guarantee.
yeah. All right. Next up is the Bronze Age. First one up is Marvel Premiere #1, CGC 9.2, introduces Adam Warlock. This is from 1972. Number of bids 75. Current price so far is $377. That's interesting. See how much the 9.2 is a high grade. But I think more people are after the previous book when him is introduced.
Yeah, everyone wants their first appearance.
Yeah,
and again, that's a very high grade. It's a little low for that high of a grade.
Yeah.
But again, it's a desirable book. But I'm waiting for the one you're going to announce next.
Marvel Spotlight #5. This came out in 1972. Origin and first appearance of Ghost Rider. Right now, it's a CGC 8.5. Number of bids is 56. Wow. And current price so far is $2,075.
Does it say if it's white pages or not?
It doesn't say on this right here, but I can't read the the little blue label for CGC.
Well, if that's an 8.5 and that's a black label, and that's, again, this is the 20-cent era where the paper quality was not as good as the 25-cent counterpart. That's a major difference here. That's very hard to find in high grade. I think that price is still going to continue upwards because, again, what was it? I was watching Swaggelhaus, and he had what I called his Illuminati. I'll shout out some of these people we watch in the community. Coma Comics. You had Newbie. You had Journos. A few Automatic Comics, Ryan. And this came up here. It was the 9.8 white pages. They were comparing that to an Action Comics #1 and an Amazing Fantasy 15. And I was not on the panel, but they were kind of like, puzzled why that would be on there. And you and I are old enough to remember when you would never ever compare an Amazing Fantasy 15 to a Action 1 or a Detective 27. Those were always the 1-2 punches of comics. Those are the ultimate grails. And it would be unheard of to see an Amazing Fantasy 15 be in comparison. Today, now there's AF-15s that surpass the Action 1 to Detective 27, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But they and I mention that because when they were putting up the Marvel Spotlight 5, the 9.8 white pages, there's a few reasons for that. The horror genre has always been around, but it's really, really kicked in these last several years. Ghost Rider is probably one of the more prominent of those characters, and his first appearance is it's a grail. It's an absolute grail. And you wouldn't think that a Spotlight 5 would be compared to an Action 1 or Amazing Fantasy 15, but there it is. And again, I think if the economy ever turns back around again, I think the Marvel Spotlight 5 is going to be one of the more heavily invested and heavily spec'd comics. I think that price is way low, if my theory is correct, that will be a grail that may top 5 figures at some point.
I'll keep an eye on this one too. I'll keep an eye out on the first Juggernaut and Marvel Spotlight. And next month, we'll see what these prices ended up at. Next up, we have Star Wars 42. Newsstand, The Empire Strikes Back. And right now, number of bids is 54. CGC 9.6. Current price is only $354. Wow.
The problem with Star Wars is there's been an oversaturation in Star Wars everything. Like you said, the Star Wars people outnumber we Star Trek people 10 or maybe 100 to 1 for all I know. But there's too many Star Wars books out there, and I think that's affecting the price of this book.
Next up, from 1970, Detective Comics 400, a CBCS book, 4.5, Robin Batgirl team up, first and origin of Man-Bat. Number of bids 49, current price $179, and it's just, like I said, it's a 4.5. That's why it's a low price, obviously.
It's also DC. It's also DC.
Yeah.
and DC is just now starting to sort of gain. People are starting to take a look at DC. It's low, but if DC ever gets off the ground, those things will start to move in price.
Last one is the book everybody wants. Damn, when I was a kid, I used to collect the Incredible Hulk, and I had like 165, 166, 170, 175. I skipped over 181 when it came out for some reason, but I have one issue of this book. This is a CGC 7.0 first full appearance of Wolverine, number bid 46, and the current price is $303,200.
There was a time in my life when I had a handful of these books, because they were commonplace. They weren't that hard to find.
Yeah.
Same with 180. Now, of course, buyer's regret, and looking back in time, I would buy a bunch of these things. I do have a 180. I only bought it's a high grade and it needs a clean and a press, but I can probably get maybe if it's done right an 8.0 out of it. But I only paid $200 for it.
Wow.
I do think because of the high print run, I may anger some people. I think this has been an overpriced book for the longest time. I think there's way too much focus on Wolverine. And again, you can't deny the buyer. They want what they want. This is a heavily desired book. I think it's priced out of my range. I don't think I'll ever get one. And even if I did, let's say, what could you ask yourself, Efren? What could you get with $3,200? And I think this may go to top 4,000. Yeah. What would you buy? Would you buy that if you had 4,000, or is there something else you'd buy?
I'd buy another book. I have this book, so to me, I'm after my Grail books, and to me, I still want the first Iron Man, the first Thor, the first Hulk, and the first Spider-Man book. Not AF-15, but those are my 4 Grails left, and that's one of the reasons I'm selling my books, to hopefully get 1 or 2 of these books, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, those prices of those 2 you mentioned, the first Iron Tales of Suspense 39 and Journey into Mystery 83, have way come down. And my 2.0 that I have of the first Iron Man, it was a 2.0. It topped out. Someone else bought a 2.0 for $10,000. $10,100 was the top price. Now you can get that same book for about $5,000. So it's within reach. Even the Journey into Mystery 83, which is a little bit more, maybe $6,000 for a 2.0, 2.5. That's the book I'd get. I wouldn't even think twice about getting that book versus the Hulk 181.
Really? Yeah, I just want them. I mean, I would like at least a 2.0 for each book. So I have some money saved up. I've been saving my money. I've been selling my books, and I still buy books, but I'm really trying to keep it low. I don't buy nearly as much as I used to.
I've said for the longest time, I've had a strict budget since I restarted about 10 years ago. I've never crossed that budget, and there's been months at a time. In fact, recently, the last 8 or 9 months, money has not been that good, so I didn't buy anything. But I didn't get myself in any trouble because I didn't overbuy. Now, recently, I bought a number of books, but then once the money dries out, I go back to my, being very cautious about what I spend, and I only buy when it's a deal.
Quick side notice, quick side question. Did you buy Spider-Man number 7, the introduction of Spider-Boy?
No, and I don't. If I saw it in a dollar bin, I might, keep my dollar. The Spider-Boy thing doesn't do anything for me. Yeah. It's a new hype. I mean, if you want it, that's fine. There's nothing. I'm not going to, ridicule you or give you a bad time for buying it. If you want, if it pleases you, that's fine. I don't make fun of anyone for what they buy. If they enjoy it and all that, that's fine. But again, you and I are old school. I want to buy old school stuff. There's so many Silver Age books I don't have my hands on yet.
I bought them, but I bought them at cover price, less than cover price. I buy them online, and the service that I use, they give you 35% discount on books. So I said, I'm going to get it. It cost me less than cover price, so I bought them. And I wouldn't pay like $30-35 that some people are paying for it. I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Copper Age. And of course, we have to talk about this one is, Amazing Spider-Man number 300. Everybody has it. First appearance of Venom, CGC 9.6, 51. Number of bids is 51 right now. The current price is $2,025.
Yeah. I used to my LCS back in the day was a place called Comic Relief in Berkeley, and wouldn't you know it, I was buying the Amazing Spider-Man run, and 299 showed up, and I don't know if I got it, and then 300 I went in there when it was supposed to be out and couldn't find it anywhere. I'm like, oh, what's going on? They missed it, and 301 or 3 I think it was 302 they finally started stocking those again, and I never thought twice about it.
Yeah.
And of course that was the first Venom, and either someone had the foresight and just bought all of them because there were no restrictions back in those days, or they just didn't show up at my LCS. And I never thought anything of it. It was just plentiful as the Hulk 181 that we just talked about. I've never owned one. I don't think I ever will. It's been priced out. Even if I had the money, it's another one of those books I put my money towards something else at this point.
Next up, we have Batman 423, CGC 9.6, Todd McFarlane cover. Number of bids is 44. Current price is $410. That looks, good price so far. See how high it goes to. The third one on the list is Uncanny X-Men 221, CGC graded 9.8, white pages. Number of bids 36. Current price is only $177.50. Just because it's at 9.8, folks, that doesn't mean everybody wants it. You know?
Well, the Batman, first of all, I've heard it more than once. That is probably the most expensive cover buy in the world. The story wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But it's Todd McFarlane's art. Now with Uncanny X-Men 221, I have several of these. Why? I bought them off the rack for cover price. I would not pay, maybe it's just me, but I wouldn't pay that kind of money for that book. Is the story really that great? Was that first Mr. Sinister?
I think so, yes.
Is he really that prominent? I mean, maybe he will be in the upcoming X-Men movie, but it doesn't do anything for me.
I wonder, there are some people who buy books just for speculation, and they may try to say, hey, this book may be hot. But I think a lot of people who buy comic books, who pay higher prices, are not people who collect comic books on a regular basis. They're just looking at it as an investment, hoping the price will go up down the years.
And that's why I part with most people. If you want to buy for investment, flipping these, there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with people buying and selling. I buy because I love the comic, I love the story, and I just collect. And maybe in my retirement years I'll sell them, but I look at things very differently than most people.
Yep. Next up at number 4 is New Mutants number 98. Obviously, it's a CGC 9.8, white pages, first appearance of Deadpool. Number of bids is 35. Current price is only $671. I'm surprised by that.
Here's another thing though, with both the X-Men and the New Mutants book, those are modern books. If you did a lot of hunting in the wild and you were diligent, it would take a while, but eventually you would find both these books for a lot less than this. Now, high grade, I don't know, but you would find them and you wouldn't be out of pocket several bills.
Just to let everybody know, I just sold one. I have a New Mutant 98. I have more than one. It was a CGC 9.6. It was signed by Stan Lee, and it was signed by Rob Liefeld. And I could have got more money on eBay, but I just didn't want to do it. And I sold it. Now, I sold it for $1,200.
Wow.
So I know I gave the person a good discount, and I won't lie, I know him personally. So when it comes to friends, the books that I sell, if it's a friend and if he asks for a lower price, I more than say no, I say yes. Because like I said, I'm not looking to break the bank when I sell my books. And, if I sell them and if I make a profit, I'm happy with it. I don't hold on to books. I don't sell that many books. But if we were off, we said, he wanted to sell it for $1,000, I would have said no. No, $1,000 is too cheap. But we negotiated, and I sold it for $1,200, just in case anybody's wondering. So,
right.
Last one. This one took me by surprise. Is Goofy Adventures number 1. Came out in 1990. A CGC 9.8. First Disney issue. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but I know there have been Disney books before 1990. I'm assuming. It says rare and hard to find. Number of bids is 35, but the current price is only $74.
I can't comment because I don't know anything about the rarity of the Disney books.
Yeah. But when people put their titles in eBay, they're always going to put stuff, first, rare and hard to find to grab an audience.
Right. Right.
So last up, we have the modern age of comic books. First one is Invincible #1, CGC 9.8 high grade. First full Omni-Man and Invincible. Number of bids is 45. Current price is $898.88. I don't know anything about. I've seen the TV show, but I've never read the book. So
yeah, I'm not up on the
this book is going
Invincibles.
to go over $1,000 by the time it ends.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, next one is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin #1, which is a great story. I've read it. CGC 9.8. Current cover A, first print. Number of bids 40. Current price $198, almost 200.
Now this one got to me because I own a few of these, and after 25 years of not buying new comics, that was the very first comic a brand new comic that I bought in over a quarter century.
Wow.
Loved it. I love that story. It really got to me. It was on a personal note.
Yep.
But the story is fantastic. Of course, it's Turtles, so you can't go wrong with it.
Next up, we have this is Spider-Man number 365, CGC 9.8, 1992. Number of bids is 40. Current price $160.50. I believe this is the first appearance of Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099 in the back.
Yes,
right?
It is. Yes, it is. First brief appearance. I hate the word cameo if it's never been seen before, but I think that is it. It's a cool book.
Yeah. Next up is I have one of these books, Ultimate Fallout #4, CGC 9.8. First appearance of Miles Morales, came out in 2011 already. Wow. Number of bids is 35. Current price is $1,476.
This is one of the rare modern books that I would get my hands on because it's Miles Morales. I think Miles has a long future in Marvel Comics. I can't afford the 9.8. I'd get a nice 8.0 if you could afford it. Even that's going to be a bit pricey. But yeah, that one I put some money towards.
And the last book on our list for tonight is Spider-Man 2099, #1, the first full appearance of Miguel O'Hara, CGC 9.8. Number of bids is 30, and the current price is, what is it? $201 so far.
I got this really cheap. Thanks. Shout out to Journalist Comics. Nice mid-grade. It's in my collection. I don't need the high grade, but and that was, I paid $20 for it. So it was totally worth it.
I think this book is going to go out when the next Miles Morales comes out, because he's going to be one of the main characters in that animated movie. So we'll see how it goes in that one. And that is it. So this has been our second go around for Comic Culture. We're going to go live next month, hopefully, and we'll see how it goes. But Dan, thanks so much for doing this with me. I look forward to this now on a monthly basis. Hopefully we can continue doing this. I love talking to you. I can just listen to you talk for over an hour and I'd be disagreeing with 90% of the things that you say.
Well, I appreciate it, but you and I both have a deep love and passion for this stuff. And a lot happens in a month. And so you and I are taking mental notes. Okay, we got to remember this and talk about that. And again, this is important to us because, and this is the philosopher in me, that you need things to be happy in your life. It is healthy. It's very healthy to have these things, because I've had depression in my life. I've had, cardiac issues, very serious ones, because I was unhappy in my life and it manifests itself physically. That's why I go on these shows. And if I can share knowledge and it enhances your experience, it brings happiness to your life, because it brings happiness to my life to have comics, so that's why we do it, so I look forward to it just as much as you do. Dan is on YouTube so often. I'm on Saturdays. On Saturdays, I'm just flipping through my YouTube channel and I see Spine Ticks. You're on there, right? I'm on Spine Ticks now pretty much every Saturday. Yeah, I was flipping through YouTube last Saturday and I stopped and went, damn it, there's Dan. And then The Hunt every other Friday. I'll be on this Friday. Yeah. And I'm currently 2 characters, the Ancient One, and then the lawyer of The Hunt, Dan R. Shyster, and I introduced a new character on Spine Ticks. You've heard of the Unknown Comic? Remember that character? I'm the Unknown Comic collector. So my wife got a paper bag, and he's got those slits in me, and I'm going to set up a new background and all that. So we have a lot of fun with that kind of thing. And I'm going to be on Kingpins, a comic book Kingpin show, not this Monday, but the following Monday, because there's a few people in the chat that don't agree with my assessment of what we talked about in the last episode, the direction of DC, because I'm convinced that their days are numbered. I don't think they're going to turn this around. I think everyone's going to be putting a bunch of money towards DC Comics, and in the end, it's going to fall way flat. It's going to be a far bigger letdown that we had than when Phase 4 showed up from the MCU. That was a huge letdown from the first 3 phases because they were setting the bar really high, and all of a sudden. So that's what. Anyway, you'll have me. I'll be on that show, and who knows, wherever else I pop up. Of course, I'll be back here next month.
Yeah. So next month we're gonna go live. We'll see how it goes, and it may be the only time we go live. But until next time, once again, my name is Efren, Past Point Comics, and the man right next to me is Dan De La Torre. You're gonna see him. He's on YouTube all the time, folks. Just scroll through YouTube comic books, and you'll see him.
I still haven't got this, who's left and who's right.
I got it right. I went like this.
You did. You got a 50% shot at getting it right.
Yeah.
So.
All right, everybody. Until next time, everybody be safe and take care.
Take care, guys.